Okay, so if you're just tuning in or if this is something that you're continuing, we are talking today about the 5 online tips for parents, and we're tackling one of these tips each time that we meet here. So you'll see this come out on social media in different places. And today, the tip we're going to be talking about is internet access. So some people have Wi-Fi, some people don't. Some people have internet in every room, some people don't, and some people just they have 5,000 screens and some people have none. I doubt you have none, but you have everything from a cell phone, which can have internet access, a tablet, a television, a computer. So there's a lot of things, a Kindle, like anything that you can get your hands on that allows Wi-Fi or internet access is what we're talking about when we say this next rule. And that rule is no internet access in their room ever. And I know as we say this, people's heads are probably exploding a little bit and they're wondering how in the world that can even be or why we would be so strict. So Lowell, I don't know if you have a story about this. I would love for you guys to share any stories you might have. But why is this not just a good idea, but a safety net for our kids to have no internet access in their room?
I know that this is a very sensitive
Yes.
and a very breakable policy, if you
Mm-hmm.
will,
Mm-hmm.
and understandable. But I was sitting across from a mom who I later learned her daughter had been trafficked
Mm.
right from her own home, their own home.
Wow.
And we conversed, and of course, being involved in the abolitionist movement and being on search and rescue operations and things like that, I kind of felt like maybe I had some understanding and maybe even a level of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And after our conversation and listening to this story, which was absolutely amazing, listening to this mom, she put her elbows on the table and slid her coffee cup to the side and leaned towards me across that table.
Hmm.
And she said, in the evening, when everybody goes to bed, where do your kids put their phone? Well, our 2 younger kids were too young at that time to have a phone, and that's a whole nother podcast. But I said, well, our 2 oldest, they actually use their phone as an alarm. I didn't want to be like completely honest and let them know that there are times when we're upstairs and they're downstairs. We would actually text them and say, hey, dinner's ready or whatever, which
Yeah.
just shows the ultimate laziness of me. But she looked at me with eyes that were as true as could be and said, well, you're an idiot. And I was taken aback in a big way, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
And her comment after that sealed it for me. She said, if I would have known then what I know now, if I wouldn't have allowed my daughter to have her cell phone in her room, her pimp would have never been able to contact her. She would have never been able to leave in the night. They couldn't have coordinated their efforts like they did. And very possibly I could have saved my daughter. She said, you need to put those phones in a common place, not only your kids, but you as well. Charge them in the dining room, charge them somewhere where there's no access in the night. And so from
Wow.
then on, we kind of went that direction. And of course, our older 2 kids were starting to move out of the house at that time. And so there was a level of, adulthood there that was then their decision. And so from then on, I realized, and maybe there have been times I've called parents idiots, but only based off of what that mom told me. Like,
Yeah.
listen, this is not about ruining your kid's life. This is a level of protection. And again, predators are banking on the fact that you are too nervous
Yeah. Yeah.
to discipline or to set that protection up in your home because it's a hassle.
And absolutely. And I have kids that don't yet have cell phones, although a lot of their friends do. Um, one of my sons, we moved from Seattle, and lots of kids were getting cell phones around 10, 11. And he would say, Mom, when did I get my cell phone? I'm like, I laughed. I was like, do you know who your mother is? No. First of all, no. I pick you up from school. I drop you off. No. Why would I need to? He's like, well, Mom, all my friends have it. I said, look, call them on my phone, text them all you want on my phone. I have no issue with that, but you're not getting your own cell phone. And it's interesting to me that what people need to realize is internet access and a cell phone are a terrible combination. You have a camera in your hand, you have the internet, the entire internet at the disposal of not just your child, but your child at the disposal of the internet. And it just builds this secretive world. In my day, you had to drag the phone by the cord into your room and then call your friend and hope your mom wasn't like by the door listening if you wanted to share anything. But now it's quiet, it's subtle, it's secretive. And just the idea, like, I don't look over my kids' shoulders constantly, but they have no internet access unless it is in the room with me and my husband, a common family area. And my son's now a teenager, and he doesn't have an issue with it because he doesn't know the difference. And I think that there's going to be growing pains for parents, but they've got to understand that these growing pains are to protect your kids. And parenting is hard. It's hard. It's great and it's wonderful and it's hard. And part of the hard is, the disappointment in your kids. But in my opinion, as someone who grew up with a lot of obstacles to overcome, you're setting your kids up to live in a fantasy world. And in that fantasy world, everyone is safe. And that's just something that we don't scare our kids, but we let them know, hey, it's up to mom and dad to make these rules. And then someday you can make your own rules when you don't live here anymore. Okay, so Carson, real quick, I don't know if you have a story to tag on or just a piece of advice or just any reason. I know you've worked with a lot of kids, you've worked with a lot of schools. I know this is a heavy, people probably complain more about this rule than any other, but what is your experience in this arena of no internet in the room?
Plus, he's still a kid. Let's just face it. He's still a kid.
Carson's like, I'm married and supporting my family. But right, I'm just a child.
I think that story on its own really wraps up, the reason of why it's so important to enforce this rule.
Yeah.
But I think one of the first things that pops into mind is you get that level of security when you're in your home, you're in your room, and you feel safe, and you have no idea that little device in your hand can do so much harm. Just like you said, with the camera on it, something sending an inappropriate picture to somebody who all of a sudden now has that foothold to where you don't do what I want. This is going on the internet. This is going, on your Facebook, whatever. And kids are immediately tapped into that fear response.
Yeah.
Where I'm not going to tell anybody at what I just did. Mm-hmm. And so that's just going to snowball. And all of a sudden you find yourself overwhelmed with no way out. And to think that all of that can be stopped by something as small as not having internet in your room. If you're doing something on the internet where you can't be around somebody, then, you shouldn't be doing that to start with.
Absolutely. And I think what's really difficult is like you said, when kids start crossing boundaries and they get more and more comfortable with their friends pushing them to cross boundaries, they learn to hide those things. And if you never give them the opportunity to be online, and we have to remember, my one story that I'll fly through here real quick. We know a vice principal at a public school, and years ago he came to us and he sat down and we were having dinner with them, and we're like, hey, how's your day at school? And he just sits down and says, never let your kids have a smartphone. Never. And he said the level of hazing, inappropriate pictures being exchanged, sexting, just cyberbullying, everything. He's like, my job is essentially just to constantly keep on top of just the little I know of what kids are doing in school, in the lunchroom, or in the classroom, much less when they go home. So another thing is like kids, like you said, they're going to be pushed and pushed and pushed, not by one kid, but possibly by 30 kids. And eventually it just reaches and escalates. And predators know how to prey on kids, whether they're their own age or they're younger. That's what they do. They learn how to prey on other kids, and they know the game better than you and I do, to be perfectly frank. Unless you're trained in it, they know better than most parents will ever know. And this is just one way to safeguard them.